So, how do we do that? How do we make sure that we connect our notes in such a way that they magically travel through time and appear to us exactly when we need them, when we are further synthesizing or in our create session? Again, what, why, and when in this process, they're not asked sequentially. It's not a linear process as you perform your synthesis. You're keeping them all in your head at the same time. If it helps you to step through this process in the beginning, that's fine, but the eventual goal is to get to the place where all of this that we're doing right now happens together. So that's what you need to be thinking about, is that eventually you'll get really fast at this. This may seem like it takes you a really long time right now, but as you practice it, things start to happen concurrently in your mind, and you can actually classify it, call it a realization note, write a realization note, and link it and connect it and do all that at the same time. So, how do we connect? What are the ways that we can travel through time? Well, the first question we need to ask when we decide how we are going to have that note travel through time is, how important is it? So let's imagine you are asking the question, when do I want to see this again? Because as we discussed multiple times, that's the most important question you can ask within Rome research. So imagine we are asking the question, when do I want to see this again? And the answer is, anytime I want to see this particular train of thought that we've just followed. Anytime I see a block and I want to see everything that is linked to it, directly underneath, we've done that, right? So that is an illustration of when you have a very important block with very important information content within it, you want to see it in your train of thought. And then the way that you do that is the way we have done this, which is simply nesting beneath, 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 and then you can follow the ladder of thought up from complexity, lower complexity to higher complexity, and lower connectivity to higher connectivity. The other way you can make sure you have stored very important blocks that contain very important content is when you answer the question with, when do I want to see this again, with, whenever I visit a specific page. So that is when you make sure that the blocks are on the page that you want to see them on when you visit. So some examples of the types of pages that that would apply to, and go back to your page types in the the 4-part series on block types, is how you've classified your pages. So for me, I always want to be able to see a very important note linked to its source, which we have here. So these notes are linked directly to their source, and they are actually on this page. They are not on this page, which is the linked references. They are actually on the page. I might want to see them on an outline. So you'll see when we get to outline synthesis that that content goes on the page. I might want to see them in a draft of an actual final product. And so I would see these blocks directly on the page of a thesis draft. Now remember, the original build of your house. Now, if you think back to the address analogy, the original build of the house, the first house that you build, should always sit on the source page. That's the most important thing. So if you are writing a block that relates to anything that you read in a source, that original block needs to stay right where it is on that source page. And that is so that you never ever miss the connection between the original creator of that piece of content. Even if you've gone way beyond and you've gone to nested it under a Z note, if you trace it back, you want to make sure that that fleeting note, that original note you took, sits on a source page. So how do you get it into your outline and into your drafts? We do that all through block referencing, and we will talk about that when we get into the create session. So we've already talked about nesting. So we have linked these blocks together through nesting. We have said that these blocks nested together represent a train of thought. Now, nesting doesn't need to necessarily always represent a train of thought. You might want to nest another block when you think it has a relationship with that block that is also important. So, for example, let's say I could think of something that is related to new criticism. I might want to nest another block underneath with a reference to some other block. And here is where we get into the real magic of block serendipity. And that is through the use of the parentheses command. So when you press shift and you click two parentheses and you have an idea that you read something somewhere else on, let's say, the Jabberwocky that you think relates to this R note. I'm saying Jabberwocky because I created some fake information. You can just go ahead and type Jabberwocky and you'll see that that note pops up. So when you hover over the note, you could read the entire note. And then when you click on it, it will actually put that note nested underneath this R note. I'm going to show you a way to clean that up in a little while. But for now, that's another way that you can nest notes if you think that there are other notes that are related to that note. Another way that you can do a block search is a new feature of Roam. If you press Command P, you will bring up an additional Roam command menu. You can click on Advanced Block Reference Search and you can type Jabberwocky and you'll see that it appears here in this list as well. And you can simply click on that. Okay. So what about if your block isn't considered very important, but it's important? It's important to you. The next level of linking blocks is through page level tagging. So if you're asking the question, when do I want to see this again? Your answer would be whenever I am exploring this subject, writing on this topic, or working on a question note or a Z note. And so you can then link directly to a separate page, a collection page, through tags or page links. You'll see this right here with literary theory. I have linked this particular L note to the tag of literary theory because this is important. And when I get to literary theory, let's say I were to click on that, I don't think I'm going to have anything there. You'll see every single note I've ever taken on literary theory underneath that particular topic, so you won't have lost them. And again, you'll see this in action really powerfully during the create session. Another way you can use a page level link is you can actually nest under a page. So let's say we were reading this source and we realized that basically there was maybe 60% of these notes that were relevant to this particular Z note. Um, Instead of tagging the Z note or nesting under the Z note with every single note, maybe it's just a collection of quotes that you think might be important to this Z note, you can actually just create the page and then nest these quotes underneath. And that will then create a connection between this note and the notes. You can see them right there. Okay, so that's the second way. The other way is you want to do related referencing at the block level. We kind of did a little mini one with a block search with the Jabberwocky. So if we go down here, you'll see these two related links. Sometimes you'll think of while you're actually doing this work, you'll think of another block that relates to the one that you're working on. And you will want to capture that related block right there within that block so that when you revisit this block, you remember that connection and you don't lose it. There's two ways of doing it. You can do it the way we just did it, where I just inserted a related bullet beneath the block. But I find that really super messy. So here is another secret way of doing it, and it's using the alias command. So many of you have probably used the alias command for pages. I like to use them for blocks, and this is how it works. So let's click into this and you will see. When you want to use an alias, you can simply press the slash to get up the command bar and then start to type alias and click on alias. And it will give you, as you can see, an open brackets and open parentheses with nothing inside. If you look at how that is formatted, what you would then do is you would name that particular reference. So if you see here, we've got two related references already. Let's say I've come up with something else that I also think is related. I'm going to call it related 3. Now, these aliases that you put here, they don't actually link to a page. So you can use related 3 a million times across a million different sources, and you're not going to get confused about which related 3 it was. It's going to be related directly to this block. And then to add the block, you can simply put your cursor inside the open parentheses, start to type in your open parentheses again, and then look for a note that you think might be relevant. The advantage to doing it this way, let me just click in and clean that up a little second. The advantage to doing it this way is that it is much, much cleaner. So that if you want to use this R note for other purposes, it's really easy to strip these out without when you convert it to text without losing all these connections. The other advantage is it's really easy for you to quickly see those connections. So instead of having to have a messy note underneath that you need to read, you can just hover over the alias and you will see the full R note right there on your page that you believe that that is connected to. So that's a super neat way of relating other notes. The least important way that things get linked is when all of the blocks on a specific page get linked because of a page tag. So for example, all of the blocks on this specific page are linked obviously to the source because they're important, they're on the page, but they're also linked to these two tags, authorship and book history. Now, why would you put the tags here versus putting the tags here? Well, I would really only use these main level tags if I think that most of the content on this page relates to that tag. I would otherwise when I click on this tag to start to organize my thoughts on that subject, I'm going to be overwhelmed by tons and tons of blocks and I'm not going to know which one is relevant. I prefer to keep the tags at the block level. It's much easier when you click on authorship and you see there are very specific blocks that link directly to that particular tag. You also see that the whole entire page is linked as well, but instead of having to go and dig inside that page, you have linked them individually. Okay? So, keeping it all clean. I've already showed you how you can clean up your related tags. This can also be used in a little mini commenting process that I've developed that you can use with your supervisor or perhaps a co-author. It is not within the scope of this class, but it will be free and I will put it out as a video separately relatively soon. The other thing that you can do to clean it up, let's say that I would like to link to, I'm going to take this out so you don't see that. Let's say that I think that this literary note should go with that other question page that we talked about. So let's just link that question page. Now, when you're looking at this literary note, again, it's really messy. You don't necessarily need to see all of this text there. The only reason you're linking this question note is so that when you go to this question note, like you do here, you see that linkage evident. It's right here in this note here. That's the only reason you want to put that Q note link on there. So what's the point of seeing it all the time? Well, there is a super secret cloaking device that you can use, and rather have you having to remember it, I've put it into a little smart block that you can steal from the academic scaffolding. It's in the Synthesize process page. Just press JJ and cloak, and it will produce for you the little piece of code that you need to make this invisible. So what you do is you just highlight the thing that you want to hide and then put your cursor in between the straight line and the curly lines and paste it in there. And then when you click away from this block, it is invisible. Okay, so when you click in the block, you can see that it's there. When you click away from the block, it's invisible. So what's the point of that? Well, the point is that even though it's invisible, it is still connected to where you wanted it to be connected to. So if we go back up to the note, the question note, and you click on it, you can see even though we have not written the link right there, it's still linked. It's just cloaked. So that makes things really neat as well, especially if you're cutting and pasting or moving things around. It just keeps things cleaner. You don't lose the connection. However, you still have the connection. So let's go back to the lesson and let's talk about the idea. And all this information is here for you guys in the outline. It's very difficult to keep heading back to the outline and providing examples. So let's go to post synthesize. This is also from Tiago Forte's progressive summarization, the idea of remixing. But as an entrepreneur, I've been doing this for decades, right? For me as an entrepreneur, I want to do one piece of content and then be able to use it in several different ways, in several different marketing efforts, and several different products, et cetera, et cetera. So this helped to contribute to my, when I used this as an idea, the ideas remix as an entrepreneur, helped to contribute to my knowledge of a subject, which is why you will use it, but it will also serve as like content for marketing or new products. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because it's not a bad idea as an academic to start publishing your work in some way, perhaps on social media, perhaps on your own blog, or doing some kind of thinking in public. If you start to do this when you're early in your career, you will gain and expand a network and you can start to become known for your area of expertise, which will then help you make important connections, build your profile, even create job opportunities and networks that will be useful to you in your career. Um, I would love to do a personal branding for academics course using Rome, but that's an entirely new course and we'll have to wait for the future. For now, what you need to know is that when you remix an idea, it will help you solidify your thinking about that idea, and then it will also to continue to build the connections you've already started making as you synthesize. So, what are some remixing habits that you can put into your synthesize process, into your post synthesis process? Perhaps after you're done. Um, Synthesizing a source, you stop and think, okay, let me look at this particular realization note that I had that is seems to be ultra connected. Is there a blog post in that? Is there something that I could write as a blog post? Now you're thinking to yourself, I already do enough writing. What do I want to write a blog post for? You do. Uh, Writing is thinking. I say this all the time. So writing is thinking. So if you're writing a blog post and you never put that in your thesis, it is not wasted work. You may actually end up finding that you could use most of that blog post in a chapter, right? Another way you could use idea remixing is you could look at a series of your realization notes or even just a series of your fleeting notes that you took that are connected and you could tweet them out as a tweet thread. That way you're drawing all the people who are who are also interested in the same topics towards your research, and you're using other people's words, and that's absolutely fine as long as you provide attribution on Twitter as well. You could decide you're going to make a 101 series. So you could go to YouTube and you could just film 4 or 5 videos that say, okay, this is what I learned from this book. Boom, boom, boom. And again, you're making a name, you're establishing yourself in your area of research. Or if you want to keep it private and personal, idea remixing has value outside of personal brand building. And again, has value in deepening your thoughts and furthering your connection. So if you want to keep it private, you could simply just make yourself a little audio file where you have a conversation with yourself and you riff on these ideas that you found the most applicable to your research. So that's post synthesize. So in summary, before I get to the summary, I just want to say the PhD is a really lonely business if you're doing a PhD. And a lot of grad school is kind of a lonely business. The issue is, especially during these times, is that there are no Parisian cafes where you can get together with other artists and academics and intellectuals and have these deep conversations and make these connections between the ideas, which is what they used to do at these universities within the universities, right? That's not available to you. Some of you are even home alone. So make Rome your Parisian cafe. If you approach Rome as a conversation partner and you decide that every idea and every thought you have, you put into Rome, so you're talking to Rome, I guarantee you it will talk back. Rome will become your Parisian cafe where you will automatically head to when you want to think through an idea or make a connection because you know that everything you've thought or connected before is already in there. So start to think in that frame of mind when you're in your synthesizing mode. So in summary, there are two parts of the synthesize session: synthesizing the source and synthesizing the outline. And the source synthesis takes place when you ask yourself the questions what, why, and when. The course in action, I'd like you to choose one source in your graph and apply the process we discussed here. And I would love to hear your feedback in the shared graph. I think that the first few times you do it, it might seem clunky and take a long time, just like when you first started taking smart notes. But the more that you do it, the better you will become and the faster it will go and the more benefits you will reap from that particular process activity. So what's next? Next is synthesizing part two, outline synthesis. That's it for today. Onwards and upwards.